The legends spoke of a hero, one chosen by fate to stand against the darkness, to be the last light in a world threatened by oblivion. Every prophecy, every ancient text, and every oracle whispered the same tale. When the demon princess emerged, the chosen one would rise to challenge her, to strike her down before her wrath consumed the world. The kingdom had long awaited this battle, the clash between destruction and salvation. But what they never foresaw was that the chosen one would not just defy the demon princess, he would become something even she feared. The night sky burned crimson, the very air trembling under the weight of her arrival. The demon princess descended upon the battlefield, her presence a nightmare made flesh. Clad in obsidian armor, her flowing crimson hair danced in the winds of chaos, and her eyes, deep pools of violet fire, held nothing but disdain for the mortal world. She was Lilith, heir to the abyssal throne, a conqueror whose name sent terror rippling through entire civilizations. She had shattered armies, reduced empires to dust, and laughed at the desperate prayers of the weak. And tonight, she had come to fulfill her destiny, to eliminate the chosen one and break the last resistance standing against the abyss. The battlefield lay in ruins before her. Soldiers who had sworn their lives to protect the kingdom now lay motionless, their bodies drained of life, their souls devoured by her insatiable hunger. The capital burned in the distance, screams of the innocent fading into the howling winds of destruction. And yet, standing amidst the carnage, one man remained, the last hope, the prophesied hero, Elias. He was not what she had expected. No radiant knight adorned in golden armor, no blessed warrior wielding celestial weapons. He was different. Cloaked in shadow, his figure was lean yet unyielding. His raven black hair swept over piercing silver eyes that held no fear, only understanding. A great sword rested in his grip, not glowing with divine energy, but crackling with something darker, something primal. The moment she laid eyes on him, a flicker of something unrecognizable passed through her mind, a sensation she had never encountered before. He was calm, not the arrogance of a man who thought himself superior, nor the foolish bravery of one who knew he was doomed. No, this was something deeper, a certainty, a presence that made her instincts bristle, though she refused to acknowledge why. Lilith stepped forward, her power distorting the space around her. "So, you are the chosen one," she mused, her voice like silk wrapped in steel. "You are what the world has placed its hope in." How underwhelming. Elias did not respond. He simply lifted his sword and took a stance. No words, no bravado, just action. It irritated her. She lunged. In a blur of crimson and black, her blade tore through the air, fast enough to sever reality itself. She had killed thousands, beings of immense power, kings, warriors, even so-called gods. None had stood before her and lived. This would be no different. But then, something unexpected happened. Her blade met resistance, not the steel of his sword, nor the arcane shields of lesser mages. No, this was something else, an invisible force that repelled her strike, sending vibrations of raw energy coursing through her arm. She skidded backward, her boots digging into the earth, her eyes narrowing. Elias hadn't moved an inch. A flicker of curiosity bloomed within her. She attacked again, faster this time, her blade weaving through the air like a phantom's whisper. Each strike was precise, relentless, meant to overwhelm and crush. But each time she met the same resistance. It was not magic, not divine intervention. It was him. His very existence repelled her strikes, as if the world itself bent around him, shielding him from her power. Her frustration turned to intrigue. "Interesting," she murmured, circling him now, studying. "You are not like the others." Elias finally spoke, his voice calm but carrying a weight that sent a chill through even her immortal spine. "Neither are you." For the first time in her existence, Lilith hesitated. It was a minuscule thing, a breath of a moment, but it was there, and Elias saw it. A smirk ghosted across his lips, and then he moved, faster than thought, his blade carved through the night, a streak of black and silver. Lilith barely had time to react, instinct screaming as she deflected, but the force behind his strike sent her staggering backward. Power erupted from him, not holy, not infernal, but something far more terrifying, something unknown. Lilith's heart pounded in her chest, not from fear. No, she refused to acknowledge that. But something inside her whispered that she was no longer the hunter. She was the hunted. And for the first time, the demon princess knew what it felt like to face something beyond her understanding. Elias was not just the chosen one, he was something worse, her worst nightmare. The air between them crackled with unseen energy, a force neither holy nor demonic, something else entirely. Lilith's instinct screamed at her, warning her of danger, yet she had never known fear. She had faced gods, torn through celestial armies, and shattered the wills of kings, but this was different. Elias stood before her, unmoving, his silver eyes reflecting none of the awe or terror she was accustomed to seeing in her enemies. No, what she saw in them was something far worse. Understanding. He knew something she didn't, and that made her blood simmer with irritation. The battlefield was silent now, nothing but the distant roar of burning structures and the whisper of wind sweeping across the corpses of fallen soldiers. It should have been the perfect moment to end this, to drive her blade through his heart and finish what she had come for. And yet, she did not move. Instead, she found herself speaking. "What are you?" Her voice was steady, but something about the way it cut through the stillness betrayed the hint of unease beneath it. Elias tilted his head slightly, his grip on the sword never faltering. "The question you should be asking," he said, voice devoid of fear, "is what you are." Lilith's fingers tightened around the hilt of her sword. A test, then. Did he think this was a battle of words? Did he believe himself capable of unraveling the very essence of what she was? No, she refused to let him toy with her. If he would not break through combat, she would make him submit with the truth of her existence. "I am Lilith, daughter of the abyss, heir to the throne of the damned." Her eyes gleamed with violet fire, her aura flaring to life, making the very earth tremble beneath her. "I am destruction incarnate. I was born to tear down the weak, to consume the light, to bring the world to its knees. And you," she raised her blade, pointing it toward him, "are nothing but another sacrifice." Elias remained still, but she did not miss the subtle twitch of his lips, almost a smile, but not quite. "Born to destroy," he echoed, as if testing the weight of the words. "Or made to believe that was your purpose?" Something deep within her shifted, an untraceable flicker of doubt, an emotion she had never allowed herself to feel before. But she crushed it instantly, lunging forward with a speed that shattered the ground beneath her. In an instant, she was upon him, her blade descending with all the fury of the abyss. And then, he caught it, not with his sword, not with a spell, with his bare hand. Lilith's breath hitched, her mind unable to immediately process what had just happened. No one, nothing, had ever stopped her like this. Her power, her strength, all of it should have been enough to cleave through steel, bone, and fate itself. And yet, his fingers wrapped around the edge of her blade with unnatural ease, stopping her attack as if it were nothing more than a passing breeze. Her eyes widened, rage and confusion warring within her. She pushed harder, channeling more of her infernal might, her muscles tensing as raw power surged through her veins. The ground beneath them cracked, the air igniting from the sheer energy she unleashed. Still, he did not move, and then, in a single motion, Elias twisted his wrist. The unthinkable happened. Her sword, her weapon, forged in the fires of the abyss, unbreakable even in the hands of gods, shattered. The force of the break sent a shockwave through the battlefield, the pieces of her once mighty blade scattering like dying stars. Lilith stumbled back, staring at her empty hand, her mind struggling to comprehend the impossible. That weapon had been an extension of her will, a symbol of her power, and he had broken it as if it were nothing. Elias exhaled softly, shaking his hand as if brushing off dust. "Your strength is undeniable," he admitted, "but strength alone is not enough." Lilith's fingers trembled before clenching into a fist. "You," she whispered, violet flames licking at her fingertips, her rage rising once more. "You dare." "I don't dare," Elias interrupted, stepping toward her. "I simply understand what you refuse to." Her body tensed, but she did not strike again. There was something about the way he spoke, the way he moved, that made her hesitate. His presence was unnatural, not in the way demons were, nor in the way celestial beings radiated their divine authority. He was outside of it all, a force that did not belong to the order of things. And for the first time in her existence, Lilith wondered if she had stepped into a battle she could not win. Her pride demanded she deny the thought. Her instincts told her it was the truth. "You came to destroy me," Elias continued, his voice low but unwavering. "But I am not like those who came before me. I am not here to be slain. I am not here to bow before prophecy." Lilith clenched her teeth, refusing to step back even as something in her warned that she should. "Then what are you here for?" Elias stopped mere feet from her, his silver eyes locking onto hers, pinning her in place as if the very universe had halted around them. "To show you," he said, "what true fear is." And then, before she could react, before she could summon another attack, the world around her changed. Darkness engulfed them, not the comforting, familiar darkness of the abyss, nor the gentle embrace of the void. This was something deeper, something primordial. It was not just the absence of light, it was the absence of existence itself. And in that moment, as she felt it coil around her, seeping into her very soul, Lilith realized one terrifying truth. She was not the predator anymore. She was the prey. Lilith's breath came in shallow gasps as the abyss around her pulsed, shifting like a living thing. But it was not the abyss she had always known, not the infernal domain from which she had risen, not the comforting darkness that had cradled her since birth. This was something different, something beyond comprehension. For the first time in her existence, she felt small. Her violet eyes darted around, searching for something, anything, that could anchor her to reality. The battlefield, the burning kingdom, the corpses of fallen soldiers, all had disappeared. There was no ground beneath her feet, no sky above her head. There was only nothingness, stretching infinitely in all directions, swallowing even the concept of existence itself. And in the center of it stood Elias, unmoved, unshaken, unchanged. Lilith gritted her teeth, forcing herself to push down the unfamiliar sensation creeping into her chest. Fear. No, she refused to acknowledge it. She was the daughter of the abyss, the heir to destruction itself. She would not allow some mortal to make her doubt what she was. She took a step forward. At least, she thought she did. But the moment she moved, the abyss shifted with her, warping like a mirage, bending as if mocking her efforts. "What is this?" she demanded, her voice sharp, though she hated how it lacked its usual unshakable certainty. Elias watched her, his silver eyes unreadable. "A place beyond gods and demons," he said simply. "A place where nothing exists except the truth." Lilith's fingers twitched. She didn't like the way he spoke, the way he stripped away all the illusions she wrapped herself in. Truth. What did he think he knew about truth? "You think this is power?" she sneered, summoning flames into her hands. The violet fire of the abyss roared to life, eager to consume, to devour. I was born in darkness, molded by it. Her words died in her throat. The flames flickered, and then, without warning, they died. Lilith's eyes widened. That had never happened before. Her power, an extension of her very soul, had simply vanished, snuffed out like a candle in the wind. She tried again, summoning energy, pulling from the abyss, reaching deep into the infernal might that had always been hers to command. But there was nothing, no response, no surge of power. Panic clawed at her mind. Number. This was impossible. She was the daughter of the abyss, the strongest of her kind, the destined heir. She could not be powerless. She refused to be. Elias took another step forward, the emptiness bending around him like a tide obeying its master. His presence grew heavier, pressing down on her, making her heart hammer against her ribs. Lilith forced herself to stand tall, to shove down the gnawing dread trying to sink its claws into her mind. "You think stripping me of my power will make me afraid," she spat, her voice laced with defiance. "I do not fear death. I do not fear suffering. Whatever this is, it means nothing." Elias exhaled softly, as if he had expected that answer. "You misunderstand," he said, voice calm, yet carrying a weight that sent another shiver down her spine. "I did not strip you of anything." Lilith's brow furrowed. "What?" Elias stopped just a few feet from her now, his silver gaze steady. "This is a place where only truth remains," he said, "a realm where all things are as they truly are." The word sent a cold, creeping sensation through her veins. "No," she whispered, shaking her head. "No, that's not." She stopped, because the truth had already begun sinking in. She had not been stripped of her power. Her power had never existed here in the first place. The abyss did not answer her because this was beyond the abyss. Her flames had not died. They had never truly belonged to her. Everything she had been, everything she had believed herself to be, was unraveling before her eyes. Elias watched her reaction, his expression unreadable. "You were told you were born to destroy," he continued. "You were raised to believe your existence had one purpose: to consume, to burn, to end. But tell me, Lilith." He took another step closer. "Did you ever once choose that fate?" Lilith staggered back, her throat tightening. She tried to speak, but no words came. Memories flashed through her mind. The infernal halls of her kingdom, the expectations placed upon her, the voices whispering of destiny, of conquest, of the inevitable role she was to play. Had she ever questioned it? Had she ever wanted it? No, she refused to think that way. She was power. She was destruction. She was afraid, not of Elias, not of death, but of the possibility that everything she had ever known had been a lie. The abyss trembled around them, reacting to the storm raging inside her. Elias remained still. He did not gloat. He did not sneer in triumph. He only watched, as if waiting for her to come to a realization she had spent centuries avoiding. "You came to destroy me," he said again, softer this time. "But the truth is, I was never your enemy." Lilith's lips parted, but no words came. Elias reached out a hand, palm open, offering, not as a warrior extending mercy, but as something else entirely. A choice. For the first time in her existence, she was not being told who she was. She was being asked, and the question echoed through the abyss, reverberating through the deepest part of her soul. Who was she, if not what she had always believed? The abyss pulsed around her like a living thing, a vast emptiness that consumed all sound, all light, all certainty. Lilith had always believed herself to be above fear, above doubt, above the fragile emotions that plagued lesser beings. And yet, as she stood within this void, this place that should not exist, She felt something tightening around her chest. It was not an external force, not a trick of the mind, but something far worse. It was the weight of truth pressing down on her, whispering in a voice she had never dared to hear before. She had never chosen this path. It had been given to her, carved into her existence like an unshakable destiny. From the moment she had drawn breath, she had been told who she was, what she was meant to become. The heir to the abyss, the bringer of ruin, the unstoppable force that would shatter the mortal world. There had never been a question, never an alternative. She had spent centuries convincing herself that she wanted this, that destruction was not just her purpose, but her pleasure. And yet, why did her hands tremble now? Why did she hesitate? Why did Elias's words sink so deeply into her soul, tearing at the foundation of everything she had ever believed? She clenched her fists, nails digging into her palms, the sharp pain grounding her. This was not real. This was an illusion, a trick. He was twisting reality, trying to break her from within. But even as she tried to force herself to believe that, the abyss itself seemed to reject the thought, because this place, this unnatural void, did not lie. It only revealed. Elias had not moved. He stood before her, an enigma wrapped in an aura of calm certainty, his silver eyes watching her with an intensity that made her skin prickle. He did not look at her as an enemy, did not hold his sword as if expecting another attack. No, he looked at her as if waiting, as if this battle had never been about power, never about dominance. He had brought her here, to this place beyond existence, not to defeat her, but to show her something, to make her see. Her pride rebelled. She was a demon, a conqueror, the strongest of her kind. She did not kneel, did not falter, did not doubt. She was meant to bring destruction, not question the role she had been given. But then why? Why did the thought of raising her sword again feel so heavy? Why did she no longer feel the same burning certainty she had carried all her life? Why, when she looked at Elias, did she feel as though she was standing before something far greater than herself? "You think you've won?" Her voice was sharp, defiant, but the edges of her words wavered in a way she despised. She hated this feeling, this uncertainty clawing at her from within. "You think showing me a place where my power means nothing will break me? I am Lilith. I do not fall. I do not fear." Elias exhaled softly, almost as if he had expected her reaction. "This was never about winning or losing," he said, his voice steady, unshaken. "This was about truth. And the truth is, you are not what they made you believe." She wanted to lash out, wanted to strike him down, wanted to silence that voice inside her that whispered he might be right. But the abyss did not allow lies. It had stripped her bare, taken everything away until only the truth remained. And the truth was, she did not know who she was beyond the role she had been given. She had never asked, never allowed herself to wonder. She had buried it beneath the destruction, beneath the bloodshed, beneath the endless cycle of war. But now, with nothing left to distract her, the truth stood before her, undeniable. Her breath was unsteady. She tried to summon her flames again, tried to feel the comforting presence of the abyssal power that had always been hers. Nothing answered, not because it had been stolen from her, but because it had never truly been a part of her in the first place. It was a borrowed force, something given to her to shape her into the weapon they had wanted. But here, in this place where nothing but truth remained, she was just herself. And she did not know what that meant. Elias watched her, not with mockery or triumph, but with patience. He did not press her, did not demand that she accept what was happening. He simply waited, as if he knew this was a battle she had to fight within herself. And that was what made it worse. If he had taunted her, if he had looked at her as another enemy to be defeated, she could have clung to the rage, the certainty of battle. But this was something far more dangerous. He was offering her a choice. The thought made her chest tighten. She had never been given a choice before. Not truly. Every step of her life had been guided, shaped, controlled. But now, in this place where nothing remained except what was real, she stood at a crossroads. She could deny it. She could refuse to acknowledge the doubt, force herself to believe that none of this mattered. But the moment that thought crossed her mind, she realized how empty it felt. For the first time, she did not know what to do. Elias extended his hand once more, palm open, waiting. No force, no demand. Just an offer. "Who do you want to be, Lilith?" The question struck her deeper than any blade ever had. She had never been asked before, never given the chance to decide. The abyss trembled around them, the void reacting to the storm inside her, mirroring the conflict raging within her soul. The fate she had always known felt like chains now, bindings she had never questioned. But could she break them? Could she be something else? She looked at Elias, at the certainty in his gaze, and felt something shift inside her. For the first time in her life, she was not being told who she was. She had to decide for herself, and the choice terrified her. The abyss trembled as Lilith stood frozen, staring at Elias's outstretched hand. It was not a demand, not a command, but a choice. A choice she had never been given before. Her entire existence had been dictated by others, by prophecy, by duty, by the will of the abyss itself. And now, in this place where truth could not be denied, she realized how heavy those chains had always been. Her fingers twitched, aching to summon fire, to reach for her sword, to fall back on the instincts that had defined her. But there was nothing left to grasp. No power, no prophecy, just herself. And she did not know what that meant anymore. Elias did not rush her, did not force an answer. He only watched, waiting. That patience unsettled her more than any battle ever had. If he had tried to strike her down, she would have fought. If he had mocked her, she would have found comfort in her fury. But this quiet understanding, it left her exposed in a way she did not know how to fight. For the first time, doubt whispered louder than the war drums that had always echoed in her soul. "I was meant to destroy you," she said at last, her voice barely more than a whisper. "That was my purpose." "No," Elias corrected gently. "That was what you were told." The words hit harder than any sword ever could. She clenched her fists, her body trembling. If she was not what they made her believe, then what was she? If she was not the bringer of ruin, if she was not the chosen heir of destruction, then who was she? The silence stretched, heavy with expectation. The choice was hers. For the first time she understood what fear truly was. It was not battle, it was not death. It was standing here, stripped of everything she had ever known, and realizing she could be something else, something unknown. Her gaze flickered to Elias's hand once more. A part of her still resisted, still clung to the comfort of what she had always been. But another part, the part that had always questioned, that had always longed for something more, was louder now. Slowly, hesitantly, she raised her hand, and for the first time in her existence, she made a choice of her own. As her fingers touched his, the abyss around them shattered,